Welcome to Studio One. Glad to have you along as we join you from our studio located on the campus of the University of North Dakota. I'm your host, Tom Beering. Up ahead in this half hour, Minnesota Humanities Commission Award winner Dr. Virgil Benoit. We'll also hear about the inspirational story of Captain Tom Considine, a swimmer of extraordinary will who survived a massive heart attack and is back competing again. And in our Open Doors segment, Canadian fashion entrepreneur extraordinaire Peter Nygard. But first, let's go to the news desk with Chris Blaine. Chris?
Thank you, Tom. From the number of fire trucks that have visited the campus this semester with lights flashing and sirens screaming, you might conclude there have been a lot of false alarms. But Plant Services Director Leroy Sondral says that's not true. Sondral says, if anything, false alarms are probably down. Sondral says that most of the alarms are set off by smoke detectors and they're doing what they're supposed to, preventing fires. Sondral says smoke from burned pizza or popcorn can set off the alarms, and so can dust and bugs getting into the alarms. He says only a few alarms have been caused by people tampering with the equipment. The fine for causing a false alarm ranges up to $1,000. Concern continues over the limited resources available at North Dakota's colleges and universities. In October, a meeting of the State Board of Higher Education, representatives of the various institutions, and concerned people met at UND to consider ways to deal with the problem. One of the proposals under consideration is the possibility of limited enrollment or higher admission standards. UND Dean of Arts and Sciences Bernard O'Kelly says such a change could assist faculty members.
The biggest immediate change would be that faculty and other instructional personnel could shift their efforts away from the teaching of courses that are barely college level.
O'Kelly says faculty could shift resources from teaching remedial subjects to higher level college material. In September, the North Dakota State Board of Higher Education mandated that ACT tests be required along with high school transcripts.
It might be that some limitation, simply because of the resources that are predictably available to the university in the future as well as presently available, some absolute limitation of numbers will become necessary, with preference given to those students who have completed certain high school work.
The UND College of Arts and Sciences has set up a joint committee to examine degree requirements and admission expectations. The Greater Grand Forks Community Theater is getting ready to open the musical Oliver tomorrow night. Larry D'Amico, director of the Chester Fritz production, says that it includes nearly 60 performers, including 24 children from around the Red River Valley. The star is Matt Peterson, an 11-year-old boy from Crookston, Minnesota. Oliver is based on Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist, a story about wayward boys in the streets of 19th century London. This elaborate production marks the first time the community theater, the North Dakota Ballet Company, and Symphony Orchestra have worked together on a project. Oliver runs through Sunday afternoon. The UND men's basketball team is busy preparing for a different sort of preseason matchup. The Sioux take on the Soviet junior team Spartak Leningrad this Tuesday night, November 7th. The Soviet team recently took silver at the World Student Games, losing to the U.S. Division I All-Star team by only 8 points. UND coach Rich Glass expects a tough game and says the Russians will put the real test to his team. The Sioux will start without injured Matt Wilkie, but returning letterman Jim Kerr, Mike Boschee, and Solomon Aglina should keep the Soviet team busy. The Soviets will host Bemidji State in their season home opener. The Sioux will take on Bemidji State Beavers on November 17th here. That's a look at today's news. I'm Chris Blaine reporting for Studio One. Tom?
Thanks, Chris. Basketball, UND goes international. Just going to have to grab your calendars to keep up with all the events at the Chester Fritz Auditorium. Besides this weekend's production of Oliver, next Tuesday, November 7th, the Fritz comes alive as the Nylons perform their a cappella harmonies. The program includes rockapella, a term used just to describe the unique style of singing the Nylons are famous for. Showtime is at 8:15. For more ticket information, contact the Chester Fritz box office. Turning our attention to weather, here's Studio One meteorologist Jay Searles. Jay?
Thank you, Tom. The very mild temperatures that we had the beginning of last week have been replaced by some very chilly temperatures. In the almanac, we had a high yesterday of 31 degrees. This morning's low was very cold, 2 above, and we had a trace of snow in the last 24 hours. Currently in the Grand Forks area, under partly sunny skies, the temperature is 24 degrees, winds are out of the northwest at 5 miles per hour, and the relative humidity is 57%. Taking a look at the national map this afternoon, We have this cold front which came through our area this early yesterday afternoon, which is spreading some very heavy lake effect snows across parts of northern Michigan. The Upper Peninsula received over 30 inches. Across much of the area, temperatures were in the 20s and 30s this afternoon. Across the western part of the United States, this high pressure is dominating, bringing clear skies and mild temperatures with readings in the 70s and 60s across parts of California and Arizona. Across the eastern part of the United States, a series of frontal systems moving through the central part, and down in Florida, this frontal system is bringing in a few showers and thunder showers down there. Otherwise, it's pretty quiet, just some cooler air beginning to move down as we move into winter. Bringing into the tri-state area, this high pressure system up in Manitoba will slowly move into northern Minnesota overnight, bringing with it the backside will be this warm front will be coming back towards us, bringing in some cloudy skies tonight and a chance for some light snow, and even some measurable amounts maybe. We'll take a look at that in the forecast a little bit later. Tom?
Okay, thank you, Jay. Sports over the weekend shapes up this way. In football, the University of North Dakota Fighting Sioux visit Mankato State Saturday afternoon. The Sioux close out their season on the road against NDSU next week. On the ice, the Fighting Sioux hockey team travels to Michigan Tech for a two-game weekend series. And now here's a first for you. The Minnesota Timberwolves open their season tomorrow night on the road against Seattle, and their home opener will be next Wednesday night against Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. When we return, we'll meet Associate Professor of French, Virgil Benoit.
I was going to take a job with that engineering firm in New York. I got a better offer. I'm building schools overseas with the Peace Corps. The pace is a little slower than New York, but here I'm getting grassroots experience I couldn't get anywhere else. The way I look at it, the world can wait 2 years for another 40-story smoked glass high-rise.
Peace Corps, the toughest job you'll ever love.
Yo, Alf here. Apparently some chowderheads out there aren't taking care of this planet. They're messing up public lands. They're littering the beaches and vandalizing the parks. Look, folks, public lands are not like pizzas. You just can't pick up the phone and order more. So let's take care of our land. Let's save the planet. Call me and promise you'll help. I'll send you a bunch of neat stuff. It's my way of saying thanks. It's an acknowledgement of your concern. It's a bribe.
Our first guest was recently recognized for his distinguished service in the humanities by the Minnesota Humanities Commission. His passionate interest in the influence of French language and culture on the development of northern Minnesota has made him a bit of a legend in the Red Lake region. Dr. Virgil Benoit, Associate Professor of French Studies at UND, also is involved with student program exchanges. Studies the French language and culture. Studio One welcomes Dr. Virgil Benoit. Virgil, good to have you on.
Thank you, Tom.
We're talking about an impact that you're making on a small rural community, which we can attribute to something, and that is your conviction that there are assets that a community can gain from by learning about the culture previous to the one that is experiencing it now. Tell me about these assets. What kind of assets?
Yes. Well, I think a community, no matter what its background has been, has got some sort of history, and I think history is an asset. I think that human experience is an asset, whether it's individual or collective, and I think in our communities across the country, there are a lot more assets and a lot more potential than people would want to admit or would even recognize if we would just look a little bit beyond the surface of things.
If a community appreciates the assets, does it make the community any different? Does it give them a sense of purpose or a sense of identification?
Well, the word appreciation is a word that is closely associated with value, and for a community to begin to explore its history and its experience is to give value to what it has experienced. And even if there would be negative moments or difficult periods in a history of a community or in a heritage of a society, those are still occasions for reflection, and they're very positive kinds of experiences in that way, because human experience is meant to be evaluated, and a study of it is simply causes us to sharpen our wits and to give some value to what we have lived.
I noticed before you have referred to the culture and languages as territories and boundaries. Why?
Yes, because there are all kinds of ways of looking or mapping the world, and you can map the world geographically, you can map the world demographically, you can map the world culturally, you can map it for its minerals, you can map it in all kinds of ways. You can also map the world in terms of its human experiences. And in the Red River Valley here, we're talking about a particular geography, and the Red River Valley extends up into Manitoba, and by that fact, it goes beyond the border of the Canada and the United States in our part of the country. And it goes from where we're sitting down about 90 miles south of here. And it extends on each side of us to the east and the west about 30 miles. Now, some people have cut that cultural territory north and south, saying we'll make North Dakota on the west side of the Red Lake, of the Red River, and we'll put Minnesota on the east side, and we'll put Canada north of both states. And yet there are people who have moved around in this area, and cultural groups.
Virgil, an important point, being a UND professor, how do you create this atmosphere of appreciation in the class to an obligated group of students sitting in French 101?
Well, you've made a combination of things there. How do you take history and bring it to a group of people who come together in a class like French 101, beginning French? Well, first of all, that audience in French 101 is coming from a wide range of backgrounds and many communities, not just from here in the valley, from many states. And how can we relate to them? Well, I think in terms of teaching a language, you have to connect that language to the rest of the world. And when you're teaching French, you can talk about the French-speaking world, and you can talk about how there are things in this part of our country, part of our heritage, which is associated with the French-speaking world. And you can make students part of solving the issues or discussing the issues that are part of the French-speaking world. The French and Indian relationship, for example, that occurred in this part of the country. When the French explorers came and became then fur traders subsequently, they intermarried heavily with the indigenous population at that time. Now, this leaves us with a particular heritage, and to discuss that sharpens our wits about how to judge human activity and exchange. And that's one aspect we should be aware of. And then all the other problems that are universal that we try to solve. A heritage and a linguistic heritage is you can only do what the language will permit you to do and what the experience of a population permits you to do. And to learn a language is to find out what it can do. And when you learn it, you can give it a lot as well.
Virgil, thanks.
Hey, thank you,
Virgil
Tom.
Benoit. Appreciate you coming on, Virgil. On our Open Door segment, Canada's fashion entrepreneur Peter Nygard, when Studio One continues.
What's wrong, Vince?
My woman's done left me, my dog ran away, and people still aren't wearing their safety belts.
Aw, Vince, you singing those buckle up blues again?
Some people don't wear their seat belts. I can't believe it's true. Those kind of people get knocked right out of their shoes. So buckle up, baby. Don't sing me those buckle up blues.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
I mean it, baby. Buckle, honeysuckle, buckle, yeah.
In 1967, Peter Nygard took control of a small women's sportswear company in Winnipeg and renamed it Tanger. 20 years later, with annual sales exceeding $200 million, he owns the largest clothing manufacturing company in Canada. Our Open Door segments looks at one of Man Watchers Incorporated's most watchable men this year, the president of Nygard International, Peter Nygard.
I think the fun part of this whole business is fashion, and fashion is image making. You know, the word fashion itself has to do with constant change and the perception of what is in and what is the thing to wear and what is the latest thing to wear, and it's the concept of continually changing and really building an obsolescence. You know, there's nothing more obsolete than a wardrobe, woman's wardrobe particularly. I mean, a woman has a closet full of clothes and get nothing to wear. You know, so it's a wonderful business. So fashion is, in fact, a standard of living that the North American and the European consumers have, and it's an expression of that.
From your position, Peter, do you ever question that, the priority of it? Is it overemphasized in the U.S. or in Canada? No?
No, that's what gives us those thrills in life, you know. That's what, take that away from particularly a woman, and you know, you got a pretty unhappy woman. You know, so why try to talk ourselves into a Chinese culture where everybody uses the same uniform type of thing? I mean, this is exactly what separated us from developing nations, is that we can put wonderful clothes on. And of course, you can have wonderful houses and wonderful cars, but when you get to the clothing, that's the most important thing for the woman particularly. Feed it. And this is what gives us a thrill and a change of clothing, and you feel so wonderful and good. You can't suppress that kind of feeling. It's a natural feeling.
Whose image are you selling, or whose image do you sell?
Well, it has to come to a lot to the image that I perceive our company to have, and perceive the woman who's wearing our clothes to have. It's carefully cultivated from what is generally out there, you know, other people's feeling towards this so-called image. But I definitely take a specific approach to it and say, okay, I don't want to reject certain parts of other people's image making, and we build our own on it. And we sort of identify our own customer and see what she would look the best in, and then build an image for her. So it really comes from our own designing group's creative think tank type of feeling, you know, and into that is fed thousands of pieces of information, you know, and then comes out this image.
I would imagine somebody in your position selling a bit of your perspective to the public. Somebody in your position has got to be pretty secure about who they are and what they're doing. True?
Well, I've never lacked from confidence, I guess, if that's what you're asking. You never get completely secure. You know, as you get older and supposedly wiser, you find out you know less and less. And particularly in this industry, it's not a secure industry. I think what you have to do in industry is act like you're secure. You know, there's so much insecurity, the retailers, the consumers, that if you come out positive and secure and sort of reflect that, that's what they're looking. That's one of the big issues of selling. Selling a product is the total convincing that you are right to know what the hell you're doing about it. But it would be naive to say that I would think that I'm always right. You know, it makes you pretty humble fast. You know.
When we talk about having an eye for apparel, how much of that is instinct? How much of that is developed?
You have to be born with it, just like a good race runner, or a good athlete, or a good singer. Then you develop it. You know, you develop it on your history, and by studying other people's work, and by studying your own work, and by studying the market trends, and by doing market research. But instinctively, you have to have some sixth sense about it. You have to have a taste of fashion or creativity, and then you have to develop that.
How have women changed, say, over the last 10, 15 years?
They got more quality-oriented, much more. They're prepared to pay a lot more, not even a little bit more, a lot more for just that one right thing, instead of getting volumes of the product. I think they're much more quality-oriented. The North American woman is quickly catching up with the European woman. I say catching up because the European woman has spent a lot more money on clothes per item than North American has. And we're quickly finding in this country too that we just can't send volumes of polyester pants. We want that one great blazer made of cashmere or something, you know, and we'd rather pay $500 for that than buy 6 outfits that are $50 a piece or something, you know. So there is now a real fine-tuning going on, you know, sweeping the country. And I don't think we've ever gone through a bigger fashion revolution that we are going right through. Now there's a big change going on right now in the marketplace.
Peter Nygard, UND alumnus and of course the president of Nygard International. When we return, in an exceptional story of an athlete's courage.
People in the National Guard and Reserve make up over 40% of our nation's combat-ready forces. It's a job that requires them to face some very big challenges. So please, don't make their biggest challenge asking you for time off to do their training.
Mr. Aldridge, you, got a minute?
Be a hero. Give your employees the freedom to protect ours.
Welcome back to Studio One. The story of our next guest is about the strong will to survive and the courage to face almost insurmountable odds. As a swimmer, he had the promise of an Olympian, but eventually found himself competing just to live. At the age of 27, Captain Tom Considine suffered a massive heart attack, putting his athletic ambitions in life on hold. Only 11 months later, he came back and competed in the Montana State Olympics, winning 6 gold medals, turning an almost impossible situation into one of great personal accomplishment. We welcome to Studio One U.S. Air Force Captain Tom Considine. Tom, thanks for coming on. Now, quite an accomplishment in itself from the standpoint of view that you were running the last leg of this triathlon while suffering the heart attack. When did you determine or realize that it was a heart attack?
Well, I didn't really. I knew something was wrong at the in the running portion, and I thought I'd just depleted myself quite a bit. I finished the race, and I sat down and I noticed that I felt pretty sick. I went over to eat and drink some things to see if I couldn't replenish my body, and got up and walked around for a little while, and then the heart attack really started to come on, and I crawled into an ambulance. And didn't really know it was a heart attack until I got to the emergency room, but I had a pretty good idea something was drastically wrong.
Damage to the coronary artery and the heart.
Right.
Now, this was 3 years ago. You're 27. You're
Right.
a competitive swimmer, peak condition. How did the doctors explain this?
Well, they said there wasn't a real good explanation for it. That the only way that they could really determine what happened was to go ahead and do the event again, which of course would be life-threatening, so they didn't want to do that. They said their best guess was that my system was inundated with adrenaline, and that I got another surge at the end of the race, you know, the anticipation of finishing the race. And that caused my heart to beat really hard, which caused damage to the artery, and body took over and did what it was supposed to and clawed it off, and unfortunately that almost killed me.
Was that explanation comforting for you? Or
No,
did you want another one?
Yeah, it was kind of hard to accept. I guess the one part that maybe made it a little easier to accept was they said there was only one way that I could have had the heart attack was to be in the condition that I was in. There was no way that I could have had it if I wouldn't have been in that good a condition.
So there's no way, Tom, you could have avoided that then?
Of course, not being in that good of
yeah.
and
Okay,
not doing the triathlon.
Right. How do you answer the questions of those that would hear something like this and they say, why should I even bother conditioning? It's inevitable. I'm going to have a heart attack. How do you answer those kind of questions?
Well, I don't think everybody's going to take themselves to that type of condition, first of all. And second of all, I think you kill yourself a lot quicker by doing nothing with your body. If you do nothing with your body, you're wasting it. And so I think you have to do both, you know, condition your body and your mind at the same time.
And Tom, the accomplishments go on and on for you. Only 11 months later, to the day that you experienced the heart attack, you were competing in a swim event in the Montana State Olympics. Tell us about the recovery period. What was the most difficult part of that?
Oh, well, I to convince myself that I could start doing things again. I went to the pool not too long after, about 3 months after, and got in and started swimming, and got out because I started questioning. I had a pain in my chest, and I thought, oh my God, another heart attack. And I got out and went home and sat down and was mad at myself because I thought, well, is this what life's going to be? Am I going to constantly fear, doing things? I might as well sit around and do nothing. And I thought that's unacceptable. I have 3 little boys, and there's no way that I could, do that.
Tom, you're still competing. What's up? What's up next?
Well, I competed in August in the National Masters meet here at UND, and I really enjoyed that a lot. And I'm hoping that I can get into some more National Masters meets and just keep swimming.
Tom, there's a moral to this story, I'm assuming. What have you learned?
Well, I think the thing is you can recover from anything as long as you have the drive to recover from it. I think that something like this happens to you, a heart attack, to sit around and mope about it's going to kill you a lot quicker than getting back out there and doing it again.
Tom, it's a pleasure meeting you. You know, we say this to every guest. It's good to have you on, but it is,
Thank
in
you.
this case, extra special to have you here.
Thank you.
Quite a story. Captain Tom Considine will take a look at the weekend's weather right after this.
Every year, thousands of babies die from choking, suffocating, or other breathing emergencies. Just imagine how many of them could be saved if only they came with instructions. Please learn American Red Cross Infant and Child CPR. American Red Cross. We help you help others.
Some people say the press goes too far sometimes.
Sorry, I don't think it's appropriate to comment at this time.
Had they stopped here, you may never have known about Watergate.
No comment. Please, no comment.
Or here, you may never have known if an issue concerned you.
The committee approved all.
Now you say the committee was involved, sir?
No.
To protect your right to be informed,
I have nothing more to say.
how far should the press go? To learn more about the free press, contact the First Amendment Center.
Grand Forks celebrates North Dakota's centennial with a grand finale tonight. Festivities begin at 7 o'clock in the Grand Forks Civic Auditorium. The admission is free. It's a Valley showcase, and it wouldn't be a party without you. Join the fun. Free birthday cake, music, dance, ethnic food, and door prizes. One last time for you to say happy 100th. For a look at the weekend weather, here's Studio 1 meteorologist Jay Searles. Jay?
Thanks again, Tom. Taking a look at our forecast map for tomorrow afternoon, temperatures in the Red River Valley will be around 28 degrees by noon tomorrow. Across much of the area, light snow will be breaking out as this warm front begins to move in across the western part of the United States, across the tri-state region. Behind it, warmer temperatures and some rain showers across western North Dakota. Temperatures will be in the 40s behind it, maybe even a few 50s as some Chinook winds kick in. Otherwise, 30s and 20s will dominate through much of the tri-state area. Taking a look at the forecast in detail. For tonight, mostly cloudy, a low of 15 degrees. Winds will be east at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and there is a 20% chance of light snow developing mainly after midnight. For tomorrow, we'll have cloudy skies, a high of 30 degrees. Winds will become southerly at 15 to 20 miles per hour, and there's a 50% chance of snow with 1 to 2 inches of snow possible. Saturday, partly cloudy, a high of 40 to 45 degrees, so it will be warming up, and a chance of rain showers with those warmer temperatures. On Sunday, partly cloudy with a high again of 40 to 45 degrees. So all in all, it doesn't look too bad. Have a nice weekend. Tom?
Thanks, Jay. Our thanks to Virgil Benoit and Captain Tom Considine for joining us today. From all of us here at Studio 1, it's been a pleasure sharing your company. We'll see you again next week.